Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Dungeon Crawl Classics Retrospective. I'm Joseph Goodman, and I'll pass the torch to Brendan to introduce himself.
Hi, Brendan LaSalle, staff writer for Goodman Games. Great to see you. Thank you all for being here tonight and showing up for the show.
Chris, pass it to you.
Hey, Chris Doyle, 5e developer for Goodman Games, and excited to talk about the good old days.
And Brad, I'll pass it to you.
Hi, I'm Brad McDevitt. I'm the artist that's been with Goodman Games almost since the beginning, and I've probably worked on more DCCs than I even care to think about.
Well, that's what we're here to talk about. So everybody, the goal of this show is just to chat about the history of Dungeon Crawl Classics. I think some of you know that we have number 100, which is on a Kickstarter right now, which is kind of amazing. Actually, really amazing. How many game lines get to 100? So what we're here to talk about is just sort of how we got there and where we are right now, and the journey from there to here. You know, we're in the year that marks Goodman Games' 20th anniversary, which is also hard to believe. And the DCC line came out, I want to say in year 2 or 3, so it's about 17, 18 years old, something like that. And again, so many memories seem like yesterday, and yet they were apparently almost 20 years ago. So I invited these folks here, and there's other guests coming on later in the show just to talk about some of the early days and what we remember about the line. And how about that, Brad? Is that from DCC number 1? That looks like
Yep, the front piece from DCC number 1.
Oh,
that's pretty cool. Tell us the story, Brad. Tell us about that image, or DCC number 1.
Well, I remember Joe had a previous line, Brontosaurus Rex, which was really cool, like the Civil War only in the future with dinosaurs. And then he had when 3 Point came out, he had the idea to recreate some of the old D&D modules, not recreate them, but recreate adventures in that style. And he even went to, correct me if I'm wrong, but you actually talked to the guys at Wizards of the Coast and got permission to do the proper trade dress, correct?
Yeah, technically I got, and actually, Elena, if you can bring up the first picture in group 1, DCC number 1, but I got permission for them to not care. I still have the email saved somewhere.
Which is a thing.
Like, which is a thing, yeah. But yeah, I was the second person to do that. Kinzer and Company had done their, that version of the look, and this is before the OSR. Nobody said the word OSR didn't happen until years after this. But Kinzer did it first, and I did it second. And it spoke to me, doing something that brought back those memories of the old school.
The best part was working the booth back in those days, and people would see our, I don't know, 5 or 6 modules that we had out, and they would walk up to them and they'd say, I played that one in 73, yes. I played that one in 82. I played, and then that caused you, didn't it cause you to put up on the ribbon on the side, all new adventure, because people thought they were the old original adventures just republished?
Chris, at the one Gen Con, I got bitched out by an older customer because he thought we were just taking the old D&D modules and slapping new covers, just slapping a new company name on them.
Yeah.
And Joseph, didn't I have to basically drag you over and so that to get him to understand, like, no, this is all new stuff. We just have permission to make it look like the old stuff.
Yeah, no, a lot of people thought it was truly, like you said, reprints and reproductions. And you're right, Chris, I forgot about that. But somewhere around number 3 or 4 or 5, the little ribbon at the top changes to say all new or something like that. Yep. Yeah.
All new module for any fantasy campaign.
Get any more generic than that?
Yeah. Hey, I'm reading it.
Don't sue us.
And so, Chris, you came on with number 7. Numerically, you had some that were earlier, but the first one that was published was number 7, right? Secret of Smuggler's Cove.
Correct.
And that was inspired by, well, tell us what it was inspired by.
That was inspired by The Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh. Inspired is a really nice word for basically, copy the whole plot almost, basically. But there's different encounters and stuff like that. So that was 2003. So I met I met you, Joe, and Goodman Games at the 2003 Origins, when you had 2 books, I think, out. You had DCC #1 and DCC #2, and that was it in the DCC line. You might have had #3, but it was already sold out. I know I didn't see it when I was there. And then it was right after that when I wrote #7, and I remember it because it was like a month after my son was born. My son, who is a freshman in college now. We're all old.
It's hard to believe.
All right.
And then Brendan, your first one was #10, the Sunless Garden.
Yep,
With that
sure
awesome
was.
Errol Otis cover art.
I know, right? I'll never forget a conversation we had, Will, where you were like, "Hey, guess who's doing the cover of your first thing?" I was like, "Who?" And you were like, "Errol Otis." I'm like, "Shut up! Who's doing it?" I absolutely couldn't believe that. And to this day, and now I've met the man. We've hung out. I've gamed with him. He's the one, like, of the old school celebrities, the one that I just can't be cool around. You know what I mean? Like, it's Errol Otis. But yeah, I was so excited about that. I had known about Goodman Games since the Bronchosaurus Rex days. I had come across those very early, and that's why I came looking for you at, I think it was an early Gamma trade show.
It was like
Alliance Open House.
Alliance Open House. Yeah, no, I remember that because you had just done X-Crawl, I had just done Bronchosaurus Rex, and they were like kindred spirits.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
They were. You know what? They were both. Like, that's why I loved Bronchosaurus Rex, because I was like, this is American-based fantasy, just like X-Crawl is. And it also, they had this really kind of, this X factor, which was taking a ridiculous premise and treating it very seriously. You know what I mean? Which I was all about that. So, I was like, so we met, and it turned out we were both like, you were in Atlanta, I was near Atlanta. And and then we wound up hanging out and gaming gamed a little bit, and then eventually
you were running that campaign, the Regulators. Was that it? The Regulators?
My Regulators campaign. Yeah, I'm gonna pitch that
any day now.
As soon as I have it. Yeah, no, I loved that campaign. It was a little, it was a very early, footloose and fancy free thing for me, but I had a lot of fun with it. But eventually you let me do #10, the Sunless Garden. I was so excited about that.
And as I so part of it was like, what spoke to people about this line? Like, how do we get to #100? Part of it was the cover, like you guys were talking about. Part of it, Brad, was just the interior art that was in that black and white line art kind of look that we didn't do digital, we didn't do grayscale. I remember you were doing, I think I actually asked you to do Zipatone. I can't remember if that was your idea
or my first, I was just doing standard, like, computer shading. I don't think I actually started doing the fake Zipatone look until the newer DCCs, because back then I didn't even have the knowledge that you could create fake Zipatones.
I know some of the folks actually got real Zipatone at one point, but apparently there's a reason people moved away from that. It's kind of hard to work with.
I used to use Zipatone at a game designer's workshop. Yeah, it's a pain in the where to actually use.
And then the thing that got everybody was the blue maps inside the cover.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was
yeah, me too.
The blue maps sold the whole concept.
Yeah.
That was the final decision to make the purchase, because you saw the cover, you were like, oh, this is interesting, and then you opened it up and you were like, who takes the money? Like, who gets it's like, who gets it? And then we were just like, just throw it on the floor, we'll sweep it up later and we'll get it. So
yeah, it was fun working on those early ones. It was such a different, I mean, it kind of led to where we are right now. It was such a different look and feel and era.
A lot fewer people work in the booth back then, and there was a lot smaller booth.
Well, I remember the first time I met you, Joe. It was you and April was hanging out in the back of the booth, I think, reading a book.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was it.
Yeah.
I actually, early on, you're always grateful to the people who help you out. I still remember my first 2 cons. My neighbors at one, Clyde Caldwell was at a neighboring booth at one. And then, you guys remember Crazy Igor?
Yeah. God.
Shop in New York City.
Yeah.
I think it was my first Gen Con, and it hadn't even occurred to me that people shopped with credit cards and I needed some way to run them. And Crazy Igor like the booth to chase it. So he let me run all my cards, but he got out he knew like all the numbers. So he'd be like, okay, that was $20 minus 25 cents for, like the transaction fee, less 1.75% or whatever Visa charged or Amex. Like he knew all the figures. So he always got his calculator, and then pay me like with a bunch of loose change, the exact amount of my cut of that after the credit card fees.
Paul was amazing.
But he ran he ran every card that I asked him to. It was great.
Super cool. Yeah. When I met you at the open house, it was just you. It was like you were working the whole booth by yourself.
Yeah, those were the days. So, Brad, tell us. Let's talk about DCC number 3.5. And Elena, if you can bring up that number.
You're going to have to remind me of some of this stuff because it has been so long. I mean, that's literally like 18. That's literally like 17 years ago, and like 500 projects ago.
Yeah, this was the one that Dave Arneson wrote, and this was Gen Con like 2004, 2005, something like that. I don't really remember. And what I remember was because we signed an arrangement to publish Blackmore, so that was like the main thing. And then somehow we got Dave Arneson to agree to do a DCC module, in which we only produced a limited quantity of for Gen Con, and then they sold out pretty quickly. And this is like the holy grail to a lot of collectors because they're so hard to find. And Brad, what I remember is that like it all came together at the last minute, and you and I pulled almost an all-nighter. I mean, I remember being up to like 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. You were drawing the art, and I was doing the like layout parallel. And like every 2 hours or whatever, you send me another image.
Oh God, that's right. Yeah.
And we got it. There was like some hard deadline to get it to the printer, and we got it done like just in time to send it to the printer.
I think I just had walking back and forth from the kitchen, get me another coffee, get me another coffee, get me another coffee, drinking coffee with one hand and drawing with the other. And I think I had her scanning some of the stuff.
Yeah, that was a while ago.
Yeah.
Good times.
I think because having Dave Arneson's name along with Errol Otis, along with some of the other, classics, and that was back in the era where nobody knew how to get in touch with the TSR people because this is all, before Gary Kahn, before everybody was on the internet. And it was like I got lucky. I met Errol at DunkerCon, which is a California con, and I'd happened to go there for various reasons, and a friend of a friend knew Errol and just happened to introduce me like randomly at a con or something, and that's how the connection was made. But it was all this kind of anyway, just luck, basically, just luck.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, all you had to do to get me to sign on was like Dave Arneson wrote, it's like I'm in.
Yeah. And then
right?
Yeah, no, for sure.
Don't even work, it's like it's like, oh, I'm getting paid for this. That's nice. I still want to be Dave Arneson. It's like, come on, manuscript. I want to work on this.
No, that was the fun of it. Like a lot of people, myself included, just wanted to be involved with classic dungeon crawls. It's the stuff that we all remember.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Chris, you wound up writing a number of those early ones. Number 7. Let's see, the Egyptian one that was. Oh yeah,
the Egyptian one I helped finish off. Somebody else wrote that one and had a great outline and a phenomenal backstory. But then I think you told me the story that he basically was going to throw the whole thing away because he didn't like it. Like he wrote all the encounters and then he threw all the encounters away. So basically, you had maps and you had a storyline and no encounters, and you were like, I want this finished, and you gave it to me, and I was like, oh, I love Egyptian stuff. So I had to basically, I sent like 2 emails to the original author and asked for some clarification on stuff, and then the rest of it, I just like designed the encounters based on what I think he had the monsters picked out, I think, and the story beats, and that was about it. So that was cool. But I think one of the really interesting ones that I think that most of the folks probably don't realize, but DCC number 0 was with 0 level characters. That was the first funnel, everybody. That was the Joe was obsessed with 0 level modules and basically a bunch of farmers throw them together and go kill an ogre. And if you think about it, that's really the basis of the DCC RPG. I mean, that's where it started. And I remember Joe came to me, he goes, I want to do a module. And he's like, I want it to be like just a bunch of nobodies, and then they go like save the town. And I said, oh, we could do that. I'm like, there's this thing in third edition where the adept and the warrior, and they weren't like real classes. They were all like there were 0 level classes. And Joe was like, that's a great idea. Let's do that. And then we're like, let's call it DCC 0. So we wrote it. I think it was after 14 or 15 came out. So
yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. It came out of sequence, I remember.
Yeah, definitely. But so that one's if folks are just real fans of DCC RPG and they want to see like probably where the initial, laying of the foundation was way back, that's probably the one that kind of kickstarted things. Ooh, I shouldn't use the word kickstarted. It wasn't kickstarted. It definitely wasn't. Because if it was, we would have delivered it by now. I promise.
Well, and Brendan, you also had that early DCC RPG like Gonzo vibe, for lack of a better term. Because I remember this might have been the second or third. Anyway, you wrote In the Belly of the Great Beast, which was the only epic level module we ever wrote, and the only module to have space cockroach men and giant space turtles, planet-sized giant space turtles.
I was really proud of that.
Remember about that one? Yes.
I wanted to write something that was epic level. I wanted to run something for my gaming group that was epic level. And I was kind of obsessed with like, when they first started putting out stuff for the epic level characters, I was like, well, how could you even make this challenging? So I was like, well, let's just see what we can do. So it was, that was a legitimately challenging adventure. Like it was it was harsh, but it was a lot of fun. It was the first time I ever had to ask for an extension on anything. So I had to be like, Joe, these stat blocks are taking me a whole day. Like they were, they were so long.
There's a page long. Yeah.
Oh, they were more than a page. There's a half black dragon, half ogre magi, like blackguard assassin. Some, you know what I mean? Like they're all like that. It's all that old ridiculous 3.5 way of doing stuff. And I still love that adventure. And there's a lot of, I don't think I think it's an adventure that people collect and don't play. I've never met anybody who told me, oh, and then we ran that. You know what I mean? Like I've never, which is a shame because it really is harsh. It really is fun. And there's the kind of like Easter egg thing that I do that you love. There's a lot of that going on. When you find out the secret motivation behind the entire cult, it's very funny to me. So
I got to go back and reread it.
Yeah, I recommend. But it was also, that was what I was working on when I first started dating my wife. That was the adventure I had, like on my, I was like, oh yeah, working on a thing now, and it was, so it's like, it's funny to think like we've been together for how long? Belly of the Great Beast long. That's how long.
That's really funny. And I still remember asking you something about like, well, how did you come up with giant space cockroach men? And you're like, the one thing that everybody finds disgusting is cockroaches. And you're saying how like players have a visceral response when you tell them that they're being attacked by cockroach men, like everybody gets disgusted,
Yeah. I'm a firm believer in putting in things into an adventure. Yeah. That people are actually afraid of in real life. People who will charge a dragon will swim away from a shark. It's totally true.
So listen, we're going to go to a Be Right Back screen and bring in some folks and talk about the next era of DCC, past that 3E era. And into the 4E area. And don't forget, folks.
Real quick before we do, we've got some subs going on in the thing. Xavion 85 just gifted a whole bunch of tier 1 subs. Xavion 85, you rock. Thank you so much. We appreciate you, cousin. That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you all for showing up and for helping us out with that. That's it. I can't express how much that helps us out. So thank you.
And we'll be right back. All right, everybody, welcome back. So the talking heads have changed. And Rick, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Rick Mafa. I've longtime writer for Goodman Games. I believe 18 years at this point. I'm still getting my head around that.
And then we have some fellow named Harley. Harley, maybe introduce yourself.
Hey guys, I'm Harley Stroh. My first DCC was in 2004 with Legacy of the Savage Kings.
Oh, you remember the date?
I had to look. It was in the SRD. I looked in the very back. There's like this.
Okay.
That's right here.
Copyright date. Okay.
That's called cheating, Harley.
No, so I still remember I lived in Chicago at the time, and yours was I believe, an unsolicited submission. You sent in,
Oh yeah.
I think, the whole manuscript with like the map, like the whole thing came in, and this was back in the olden days of mail, if I recall.
Yeah.
I think you physically mailed it, right?
I'm sure I did. I had ran into the Sunless Garden by our friend Mr. LaSalle at the local like hobby shop. Like I was missing all my gaming group, and I was like, oh man, I just want to go back to a comic store and buy a TSR adventure again. And then I pulled it out, and I was like, oh my god, my mind was blown. Right, like the blue line maps, the Errol Otis, and I was like, this is what I want to write for. And so I sent it off to you.
Yeah, and I remember sitting there, for some reason, I remember reading your, I mean, it was good, which is probably why, but I remember reading your adventure and thinking like, this is pretty good, you know? And it wasn't like a pitch. It was like the whole damn thing, you know, with maps and everything. And I still remember there's like this tiny access way that only the vampire can go through when he's in gaseous form. And that's the Easter egg treasure. And I remember like, oh, that's clever. But yeah, no, it was a good one. I remember that.
Right on. Thank you.
Yeah. And then Rick, you wrote the Scaly God. Which,
That's right.
I believe we didn't do a lot of dragon ones. And this was probably not the first. I'm sure we had other dragons. Actually, we definitely did. But this was in my mind, one of the more important like dragon focused adventures. Number 26. Maybe you can tell us about this.
Sure. I mean, yeah, I had run into the Goodman Adventures in a game store. I had just come back. I had come back to D&D with 3.0. After a long break, so I was kind of galvanized to play, and I saw these two adventures in the game store. And once I saw the blue covers, I was like, the blue maps and the layout and everything, I was like, I got to be part of this. And yeah, I've always had a thing for blue dragons, so I think it was a cold submission, and it ended up being a really big module. That's the funny thing for a first book. But yeah, I believe that was in the very late 2004. I sent you the submission for that, and
was it? Okay,
we're off to the races. DCC number 26. Yeah.
And you, this was all like pre-iPhones, right? So people nowadays, everybody takes 20 pictures a day, but this was before any of that. You somehow managed to dig up photos. And Elena, if we can show these photos from 2006 and 2009. Tell us about these.
Sure. There's a picture from the 2006 Gen Con booth. That was me actually signing the book. And that was the first day I had met you. You and April were there at the booth, I recall. So that's one of the photos. And then have a later photo from 2009, which is kind of when we were rolling out the white cover DCCs. So two older photos.
Yeah.
But yeah, 2006 was sort of the rollout of the Scaly God. So I was very happy about that.
And that 2009 photo is kind of amazing because all those people are still involved. We look so different.
Right? Yeah, I like to say a little more gray in the side. But
no, I'm glad you found these photos. It's just, I mean, nowadays every con we get 1,000 photos after the con, because everybody takes everything on their phone, but they're not that many from that era.
Yeah, no, it's cool. Like you said, I actually took those with a camera, believe it or not. So
whoa, how old school.
What's that?
In a museum now.
So I was going through some of my old files, just getting ready for the show, and I came across a flyer for BeerCon. So Lena, if you can show that number 5 image. Do you guys remember that? I know you do, Brad.
Yeah. So BeerCon, that was classic.
Crawl back in Dungeon Crawl.
Yeah, that was basically the unofficial official Goodman games, and I believe that year was also Troll Lord games too. I think the first couple you did was just Goodman games, because clearly we didn't know how to party, so you bring the trolls in, and all of a sudden everybody wants to come.
Yeah, then it's a party.
And there's custom artwork for the posters, and there's there's secret handshakes and stuff like that, and it's held at a place called the Slippery Noodle, and we're like, what? It's like,
I remember the Slippery Noodle.
So
we were down in the basement, weren't we?
Yes.
It was like this a really low ceiling. Like that's mostly what I remember. I felt like I was gonna bump my head. Yeah.
So, and I remember the problem was it didn't matter what night we put it on. Usually back then, that's when the tournament was one of the bigger things we were doing. And it always ticked off the game masters who couldn't come, because they were running a tournament game. And you know, we it was one of those things we always scheduled the tournament games. At Gen Con you have to schedule stuff like, you know, 8 months in advance and give them the keys to your car and your deed to your house and everything. But like, you know, so we didn't know. And then literally it'd be like, you know, I don't know, the Tuesday before Gen Con, it's like, oh, what night are we doing beer con? You know, it's like, so we would pick a night, and invariably there were some rounds of the tournament going on, and like a lot of the people couldn't make it, and they were always I remember the one year I actually ran pizza to some of the people running. Like there was pizzas at BeerCon, and we actually grabbed a few pizzas and brought them down to the tables, and a couple of groups actually got free pizza on the house.
That's good of you.
Yes.
We should do BeerCon again. I gotta write this down.
We should wait and schedule it like a day or two before.
Let's figure it out later.
Have it on like Wednesday night.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was fun. That was a while ago. Yeah, and then you made me think of something. Oh, so after BeerCon, one of my goals at every Gen Con for a while was to prank the trolls. So this is skipping ahead. Do you guys remember one of the Gen Con yearbooks? I had like the little table you roll on. Do you remember this, Harley?
Yeah, it was like 20% off at the Troll Lords booth.
I think it was $100 off at the Troll Lords booth. I remember Steve was pretty pissed, but he honored it. That was the amazing
He honored
part.
it. He did.
He honored it for like. I wrote like on a business card or something. I was like, Steve, this is for real. And then
wow.
It was really funny. Yeah, I missed Gen Con. We got to go back.
Mm-hmm.
And then another thing that occurred to me as I was prepping for this, if you guys, if Elena, you can pull up the cover to number 35, the Gazetteer.
Oh, right.
And I think, a lot of us were involved in this in one way or the other. You know, Harley, I know you helped write quite a bit of that back in the days. Tell me your memories of that.
That was actually really awesome because we were working with these massive poster-sized maps, but I would physically like mail them out to Jeff and to Mike Ferguson. And so we were exchanging, like, and somebody would draw on it for a little bit and like add a country and then mail it back. And so down in my basement, I had like all these iterations of you know, the world of Aerith slowly evolving.
Is that the one where I had to draw like 50 different like maps or logos for countries?
Yeah, no, totally. Because I was in love with the Greyhawk folio, right? Where they had the heraldry inside.
Yeah.
And so it was like, oh, we got to do exactly this, right? Yeah. No, that was fun. That was a lot of fun.
That was probably one of our first products that we actually had a team working on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like more than one writer. Like everything else was pretty much probably one person, except for the tournaments. But you know, so how'd you do that without Zoom?
I know.
Lots and lots of phone calls and emails.
Yeah.
Well, Chris and I were just talking the other day about if we should bring Aerith back one of these days, because a lot of that's probably one of the most requested products we have. People wanting a copy of that.
It's interesting because it's not well suited for DCC, but I could see it for 5e. Like it's almost too predictable for DCC, but
too vanilla.
Traditional fantasy.
Right.
And then also from this era came Castle White Rock, which was one of the very end of the 3rd edition eras.
Literally.
If we can show that cover art.
Yeah, literally.
The end. Oh no, I think we did one more after that, which was like the tournament module from.
Yeah, but as we were unpacking the boxes of it at Gen Con 2007, they announced 4th edition like that night. Like we were literally setting the booth up, and then they did like a special seminar or something Wednesday night. And they announced that 4th edition was coming out, and it just sucked all the air out of the booth because we were like, we just created this huge, massive thing, and now it wasn't going to be supported by the rules, and it was like, it was just terrible timing. It's because it took a life on of its own. So, but
it was a great product. Again, something else we should bring back for maybe for 5e or something. But it was Chris. I don't know if this will embarrass you or not. Tell us the story of the word count.
So the original contract, I think I still have the original contract actually, was for a 96-page book. So
And I think
we
it came out a
missed
little
that.
longer than that.
We missed that by a little bit. The final word count, the final page count was 768 pages. But you know, I don't know. It's like a tad in space terms. It's not that far off. So you know, it all came down to I was working on it for a couple of years. You'll notice that if you look at what I did in DCCs, I did a bunch from 0 to 15, and then I didn't do anything until 51. 51, and there's a reason, because that's what I was working on, and I was working on it by myself, and then eventually Joe was like, we're at Gen Con one year, I was probably 2006, and Joe was like, you know, we need to get this out. He's like, what do we need to do? And I said, I need another writer. And he's like, okay. And then we got another writer, and it was Adrian, who was working on our tournament at the time. And Adrian lived in New Jersey, so it was easy. We used to get together at a local diner, and we used to work out all the, you know, you talk about mail and stuff back and forth. At least Adrian, we were like about a half hour apart from each other. So we would meet at this diner, and we would lay all of our stuff out on the diner table. We would order pie. Of course, we ordered pie. So we ordered pie and hot chocolate and stuff like that. And we would be there for like literally like 6 hours. And they're like, the people would, they'd be like, are you guys still? It was like, we're still here. And it's like, you know, and it was like, it was basically, we came up with, that was Goodman Games East. That was our official Goodman Games East office. You know, or you know, we didn't work out of the corporate headquarters back then. And then at that Gen Con at 2006, Joe was just like, word count be damned. He's like, I want this thing. He's like, I want it, and I want it big. And we embraced the hell out of that. We literally went away and didn't say anything to Joe until like January. We came back like 6 months later, and Joe's like, how's it coming?
Also known as 600 pages later.
Yes. And we're like, well, it's coming great. It's really big. We were still
that was another one that was.
Yeah, we
Well,
were still writing parts
that we
of it.
pulled that off, frankly.
Yeah, we were still writing it
incredible.
while it was being edited, and we had 2 editors. Joe was like, oh, I got a really cool idea. One editor is going to start at level 1, and the other one's going to start at level 15, and hopefully they're going to meet somewhere in the middle. And he goes, that's how we're going to do it. That's how we did things back then, people. Yet we were still, I was still writing level 7, I think, when the editing process was going on. So yeah, it was crazy.
I mean, that's right in the middle, Chris. It works out perfectly.
It did. That's why we left that one off. That we were waiting. It's like, oh, so we got all the time in the world for level 7. So yeah.
And so right after that, after I paid the biggest print roll I'd ever paid for probably those obsolete on day one. That was also, I don't know if you guys remember the first, because we had 100 copies airshipped to Gen Con, and the printer, remember they did the covers wrong?
Yep, they messed the cover up.
The first 100, instead of using normal cardstock, they used some sort of like a glossy stock, but it was kind of floppy. Remember that? So there's like 100 copies out there somewhere that have the floppy covers, and then they were able to correct it for the bulk run. But we released that, then 4E was announced, and 4E came out, and Elena, if you could show picture number 8, the Cell Swords of Punjar, you know, it's funny because 4E as an era is not well recalled, you know, by many people, but I feel like those first modules we did, it was sort of a great combination of the Punjar saga, the Mountain King saga, like those first 9 kind of flowed together really well.
Yeah.
And I believe all 3 guys worked on some of those, right?
Yeah.
Rick, Chris, Harley,
I worked on a few.
I think we each did one, right?
Yeah.
I don't think I was involved with most of these, most of the 4E stuff at this point.
Oh,
okay.
But that was a precursor to us starting to like shift more into like the pulps, right? Because
you can tell that cover is just speaks to that. Exactly. Yeah.
You know,
and I remember that trip we took to Fort Wayne.
D&D Celebration.
Winter Fantasy or something, right?
Winter Fantasy.
Yeah, Winter Fantasy Celebration, whatever they called it. And we were driving, we hit like 9 retail stores in like 1 or 2 days.
That was you and I, Joe. You and I, we spent the whole day while they were all at the booth selling lots of 4E products. Translation, they were playing games. They were playing games that Doug invented that we can't share. Let's put it that way. eyes would fall out of your head if you. But it was a cool game. I remember it very well, actually.
But if you want to play this, come to Gen Con, Embassy Suites. You'll have your chance. The latest iteration. But no, that was a that was an interesting era.
It was like era. 13 hours. We were driving to like 9 different game stores to visit them.
Well, I mean,
and
this was a different era. There was no Kickstarter. There was barely online stores. This is when you went to physical brick and mortar to as a publisher to sell your stuff, and as a retail,
some of them smelled really bad. Some of them really smelled bad.
Well, first of all, what city has 9 game stores? I mean, Fort Wayne in some ways is like a mecca. And if you're going to have 9, there's a bell curve. So some are going to smell and some are going to be amazing.
Oh yeah, they ran the gamut, man. They ran the quality gamut. So
no, but Harley, you mentioned the Pulp Era, because that reminds me, that was the trip where I can't remember what it was, but like I hadn't read this author, you hadn't read that author. We all about to talk, and this is when I started to discover Appendix N, because you guys kept recommending all these great authors, of which I'd read this one and not that one. I feel like that was a trip where I walked away with a list, like a reading list, and that eventually led to me wanting to read a lot more of these classic novels. Aaron Rudel was on that trip too, as I recall, and he'd read a lot of cool stuff.
That's right. Yep.
And Adrian was there. Harley, you were there, right? So so it was a really good trip. That was I'll never forget it. It was Super Bowl weekend. I was upset.
Was it?
Yeah, I remember. I had to watch the Super Bowl.
I didn't plan the con. Who plans the con?
I had to watch the Super Bowl in our hotel room with Harley and Aaron and Adrian, and they're like probably 3 of them the most non-sports fans like ever.
Guilty. Yeah.
So, and I missed the first half. So, Pittsburgh, not St. Louis, Cardinals, whatever, Arizona, Pittsburgh, Arizona. Not that I remember the game or anything.
Right.
It's a 102-yard return for a touchdown on an interception, but it was good.
That sounds to me like you weren't paying attention to the con as much as you should have been, Chris.
Well, that was like Sunday night, like after we were back in Chicago.
Okay.
The gaming industry is 24/7, Chris. Shame on you.
Yes. Yep. We got to keep rolling because we still have more folks to bring on to talk about the next era of Dungeon Crawl Classics. But thanks to you guys. That gets us to 4th edition, and now we'll be right back.
Great.
All right. Hi, everybody. We're back. So I brought along a couple more friends to talk to you guys. Mike, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Michael Curtis, class of 2008. Goodman Games.
Stefan?
I am Stefan Poag of either earlier or later than Michael. I don't remember. But same era.
And so in the last couple of segments, we got us through 3rd edition up to 4th edition. And now we want to talk a little bit about DCC RPG and that era. And this is after the invention of the iPhone. So we basically have a lot of photos from this era, mostly from cons. And so I thought we'd maybe show some con photos and talk about some of the things we all recall from back then. So Elena, if you can bring up that picture from GaryCon 2011. And as I recall, we took this with an old-fashioned camera, which is why it's so crooked. We did it on whatever mode that is. But Harley, you remember that trip?
Yeah.
Going to...
That was amazing. That was the trip we went to see Roslov's wife, and you were returning artwork from the DCC.
That's right.
Because Roslov had mailed you originals, and we kind of like, it was essentially like a pilgrimage. Like we went back to Roslov's house and met his wife and got to see all the stained glasswork she was doing. And she remember she took us upstairs and like showed us all the Prince Valiant stuff. And
yes,
yeah, man, that was amazing. That was an incredible opportunity. That was amazing. That was really cool.
No, you're right. I'd never been to Lake Geneva. Sorry, maybe I've been once, but I'd certainly never done the D&D stuff in Lake Geneva. This was GaryCon 2, I think, if I remember correctly. But it was like, just the second GaryCon. It wasn't like GaryCon was a thing yet. Yeah. And I remember I hadn't actually ever read Prince Valiant. That was the thing that made me, that I came back and started reading the Hal Foster Prince Valiant. So I was like, this is really good. How did I miss this stuff,
Yeah. But they're also big format. I mean, I don't know if you had gotten into big format prior to that, but the reprints were all oversized.
Yeah. And Stefan, I know you're a fan of Hal Foster. He's an amazing artist.
He taught me how to draw castles.
That's awesome.
No, I mean,
awesome.
when I was a kid, it was in the Sunday paper, and I would copy the little bricks, the way he drew bricks. It was just awesome.
That's cool. And so that Gary Con was where we ran a game that I think didn't have a name yet. And then I believe it was in 2012. And Elena, if you can bring up that photo, that was where I wasn't there because my son was just born, but Mike, you were there, and my first son. And tell us who's in this picture, Mike.
I was there. Yes, I was there. The person the people to the left of me in that photograph are Haley and Connor Sketch. And even back then, Haley was apparently terrifying me because I was very concerned that Haley was going to try to bust out some shenanigans on me.
But I remember those early games there where we were all just figuring out the rules still and everything, and it was a lot of fun. But yeah, a lot of these folks are still playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
And actually it was because Haley and Connor play tested some of the very early rules, because only like 3 people know this. The first or second printings of DCC RPG, I somehow misspelled Connor's name as Colin in the playtest credits. Was it your fault? Oh, because you like wrote it down from the. I never knew how it happened. Okay.
Yeah, I had a character in something I was working on that was named Connor. It's like that can't be right. He's got to be a Colin. And then we like got it right, and then we got it wrong again. Like we flipped back and forth like 2 or 3 times.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah. And so that one line in like the playtest credits like changes in the core book for a couple printings and then normalizes. But yeah, those were fun early days of playtesting and then releasing and gaming with it. And then, Elena, if you can bring up some of the photos from Gen Con 2013. This was way back then.
The first year Goodman was back, like officially, after GCC had come out.
You still couldn't buy dice for it, though, right?
That's right. Well, you could go to Zaki's booth and buy some dice, and you could go to what are the other folks? Anyway, the other folks who made the other random die and buy some of their dice.
Yeah.
But yeah, you had to assemble your own set, just like we had all done.
I love it when people come up and they're like, Goodman Games just does this so they can sell dice. And it's like, dude, we couldn't buy dice for like 5 years. This is just Joseph funneling business towards the Colonel. It has nothing to do with like us making money off dice.
Do you remember the time he crashed our What's New seminar?
Oh yeah,
that was
you have to tell the story about him like calling you in the middle of the night or like faxing you the invoice or like
yes,
I don't know.
That's
amazing.
I've done business with Lusaki for many years, and he does things his way, which doesn't involve the internet. And he would, you call him, then you for a long time it was fax, and it was mailed invoices and mailing checks, and he would randomly, I don't know what hours he sleeps or doesn't sleep, I get random phone calls at all times. Like, do I want this order? I'm packing this order, whatever. It was its own way of doing business. But he sold a lot of dice thanks to DCC RPG. And then Elena, you just flashed this other photo. Maybe flash it one more time. This was, I believe, the first Doug Con, Gen Con 2013. This is Doug, and you can actually see, I believe that's you, Harley, in the back left of that photo. I think this was in the Embassy Suites. I think that's Rick Hull in the bottom right.
Yeah, it looks like
recognize the profile. So yeah, I think this is one of the first, or maybe the first of those early days. If we go to 2014, this is where we suddenly have a lot of pictures. 2014, Mike, you remember this photo, the photo shoot when we were staging something inspired by Janelle Jackway's Book of Treasure Maps cover.
Man, Dieter and I still remember how cold Lake Geneva ground is in March, because if you notice, we're the only 2 people in that photo who are not wearing shoes. we could not wait for that shoot to be over.
Yeah, as I recall, I just want to come up with a cool photo, kind of like that, the one that they had in Book of Treasure Maps. And there's a fellow who worked at Games Plus in Chicago, or Mount Prospect, right outside Chicago. And that's one of the stores Doug grew up going to, and I loved it when I lived in Chicago. And he was involved in like the SCA or something. I basically like asked around, and they're like, oh yeah, he so-and-so has all the equipment, and he goes to Gary Con. And he basically in the trunk of his car brought like swords and capes, you know, and, like shields and daggers. And so he supplied us with all the goods, and we did our little photo shoot. And that was the Gen Con program guide cover, I think, from 2014 or whatever it was.
Oh, nice. You're right.
Yeah.
You're totally right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we mocked it up like the, you know, because it was that black border that was all worn, so it looked like a vintage copy of the Book of Treasure Map. So yeah.
Yeah. And then I think we have a booth picture from 2014.
I'm sure.
When that was things got a lot bigger.
Wow. I knew Keith.
Yeah, there's Keith Lavaw, the warehouse Yeti in the center.
I
And
remember.
you got go ahead.
I remember this booth. I remember this booth exactly because this was 2014. This was after we had gotten out of the little booth that we had when we first came back, and we had the booth all set up. And I was standing off to the side looking at the booth. Harley was next to me, and I turned to Harley and said, "Harley, was this what it was like during like the 3.5 years?" And Harley turns to me and says, "Mike, it has never been like this." Oh.
No, it's when we started getting things started heating up. It's really hard to get a bigger booth at Gen Con too. You got to ask for a long time before you get the space. So, yeah, that's Mark Bruner in the back left there. I think that was his first Gen Con with us, if not his first entirely.
That was like just before he graduated high school, right?
Right. I mean, he paid to come to that one, right? That was one of the Kickstarter.
Yeah, we ran a
things.
Kickstarter, and some people paid for the backstage pass option. That's right. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's another way to write for Goodman. You know, like give us extra money, and we'll put you to work.
Reverse
and we like
employment.
you know.
But that's how we met Wayne Snyder. So it was he had my phone number, and he showed up to Gen Con, and I got this phone call from Wayne. I was like, oh crap. And he's like, how can I help out? And I'm like, well, Doug's setting up his booth. And so, you know, Wayne and Doug, who had never met, it turns out that, you know, Wayne and his wife are both artists. And so Doug like handed off booth hanging. He's like, wow, my booth has never been hung this well before. And that's how we got the Wizard Van. It really is. Yeah, it's like it's all like people falling in love with the stuff they love, and like you're just like a magnet, you know, they all like kind of like drawn towards it.
That's cool.
I remember when Doug walked over the booth with Wayne, he was like, "This is my brother." He looked like the taller version of Doug, when they both had the beard and everything.
But then, because that's how Doug would sneak him in, though, because he would have his brother's name badge, whatever.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. And Stefan, I think it was around this time that you started getting involved, as I recall, because this is when we started to get into the DCC RPG era in these years. And I feel like you obviously had worked in the original DCC RPG core book, and I feel like it was around, so it must have been, well, maybe a couple of years before this, but around here where you became more and more involved.
Yeah, I remember I have art that is dated to 2011.
Oh, really?
I was
Okay.
looking at the other day. That was for DCC, or it was for you anyway. I don't remember exactly what it was for, but yeah. So that would be around the time that I was working for you after having worked on some of the D20 stuff.
And I feel like, remember Exquisite Corpses, that book you did,
Yes.
which I love? I feel like that was, I don't know if the timing's right. I certainly associate that book with you, and that book with being how I kind of discovered your art. Although maybe it didn't happen exactly that sequence.
I think the sequence was that I worked on D20, and then I sent you Exquisite Corpses, and then we did DCC, I think.
Okay, sounds close enough. Yeah. And then we have another photo from Gen Con 2014, which is Mike either fighting with or being pleased by the chained coffin. Not sure what that facial expression is.
I think that was just like that was finally the copy in hand. I think after all the Kickstarter and everything, and that was the first one.
Yeah.
And I was so glad to see it, but at the same time, I was like, "You have consumed so much of my life. I am glad to put you in the rear mirror." You know, that was.
Yeah. And then we have this other. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to ask, didn't you like hire the Boy Scouts to put that thing together? Or is that something else?
That's another classic Luzaki story.
Yeah.
Luzaki, yeah. Lou would get he would get a Boy Scout troop to volunteer for like, I think it was like a service badge. They would all ink his dice for them for free. It was like, I think he watched like the Willy Wonka thing. It was like, why can't I get real Oompa Loompas? I know, Boy Scouts. Yeah.
No, I remember asking. So I've worked with Lou for like, I guess 15 or 20 years or something. For a long time, we could get ink dice. Then I tried to order ink dice one time, and they're, he's out of stock. And I'm like, well, when are you going to get some new ink dice in? And this is when I discovered the story. Like, imagine you're calling a manufacturer and you're like, I'd like to buy ink dice. I'm sorry, we're out of stock. Well, when are you going to get some more in? Well, all the Boy Scouts drew up. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what do Boy Scouts have to do with dice? He's like, why? I got nobody to ink my dice anymore. Like, oh. So then, fast forward like 5 years, and ink dice are back in stock. But if you go back to the price list that I used to charge, they're a lot more expensive. Like, they're like $15 more, for the ink dice. And I remember asking him, I was like, why are the ink dice so expensive? And he's like, you think I want to sit around inking dice all day long? Because he was so he charged this like huge premium because all the Boy Scouts had grown up.
And that's how the sausage gets made. People.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's a hard knock life for us. It's a hard knock life.
I mean, it's worth doing business with them just for the entertainment value.
Right.
Just the anecdotes.
Yes. Yeah, I forgot about that. So then we have another photo here from 2014 about Harley and Mike reaching an accord. Can you guys tell us what this was about?
This was the great fake was it what they call it wrestling
So the weigh-in,
no, it was like a feud. It was like a beef. We had a beef.
It was beef. It all started because nobody could figure out spell duels. So everybody was like, I don't understand spell duels. So Spellburn decided they were going to do an episode based on spell duels and show how it done it. So we, like, Harley and I, somehow we fake started this rumor that we were, on the outs or something like that, and then it basically would build up for this grand, like us going head to head in this spell duel on Spellburn, and so that's what that was all about. And that photo was taken like the next time we saw each other after we recorded that episode. It was just, it was the promo feature. It's like, now we're back on the same side again.
That's right. Right.
Like, we're ready to take on the troll lords or something.
That was fun. And then we have a picture. The next one is Keith LeBaugh. In that I went through this obsession with cardboard cutouts, which frankly I might renew because I'm kind of getting into them again. But they're really cool. But anyway, so this was where Keith, who was like 6'7" maybe, shrunk down to this like 5 foot cutout. I think we need some more of those at Gen Con this year.
Belly button. It would be the Cyclops. That's what could have.
Ooh.
And then, as I recall,
the cardboard. Oh.
So then we started this tradition where the teardown crew. It was great. Everybody would help tear down because it used to be I could back up the whole booth in like 10 minutes and we were done, and it started taking longer and longer. And then so we'd all finish up and then go eat, go get something to eat. And there was I think 1 or 2 years in a row where I thought I was doing you guys a favor by taking you to the steak restaurant, and instead everybody hated it. This is that photo of Doug fighting the football. That's right.
Yeah.
So Elena, if you could show that photo of, because it was that football themed steak place, and as we just discussed, there aren't a lot of football players. Yeah, I know. And Doug, they gave you like a football with a menu written on it, and anyway, it didn't go well.
I think we were all intimidated because like any single entree was more than any of us had ever paid for a meal, and we're like, I'll have the breadsticks, please. We're like, man, we're gonna like destroy Joseph Goodman and Goodman Games by ordering real food.
Well, now we all feel much more comfortable at the Irish restaurant, the Irish pub, I think.
We're more comfortable there. That's home.
Yeah.
There's that great Indian place for a couple of years too.
But they went under, even before COVID, they went out.
Yeah.
Now, that place was good though.
Oh my God, that was my favorite.
They had, because that's what they had business twice a year was us. And we went there after,
that's right. It was great. Nobody else was there. We'd bring our like group of 14 people.
Yep, they can see us all. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I hope that are they saying that, oh my gosh, in the chat, the Irish pub is gone. Oh man, what are we gonna do? We gotta figure out a plan for Gen Con.
I don't know.
Wow. Bummer.
I'm not going back to Steak and Shake. We're past that. We're too big for Steak and Shake now.
I think we're aligned on this, yes. And then if you bring up that last photo, Elena, this was I think one of the early teardown crew. Actually, this is amazing. This is when the whole booth apparently fit on one pallet, which certainly doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, Brendan, you I don't remember what was happening, but you were having a fun time after that cleanup.
Yeah. I think the term is slap happy.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You know, that's like I just ran like 36 hours of games, put the booth up there. It was dehydrated and it was just like losing it. So
yeah.
Yeah.
In a weird way, that's actually kind of one of the fun parts of Gen Con is being part of the setup and the teardown. And that's also where we learned the air conditioning secret. They do not turn on the AC for the paying exhibitors. They turn on the AC when the fans show up.
Cheap. Gen Con will pinch a penny till Abraham Lincoln gets a tear rolling down his face.
I feel like I'd be willing to pay a little more for the booth.
Right?
Turn on the AC earlier, like AC surcharge or something. Even just events like in our zone or whatever. But yeah. All right, so let's go to 2015. And Brendan, we have I don't know what was happening, but we have an impressive picture of you living large at Gen Con 2015.
Well, I'm running. I'm not sure what
it looks like. It's maximum X scroll. I think.
Yeah, that might be.
That
might be. You know, for most of the time, if that is from Gary Con?
No, I think it's Gen Con. Gen Con.
It's supposed to be Gen Con.
Yeah. So you know, most of the time, I still do this. When I do Gen Con, there's so much DCC stuff that goes on there that I just run X crawl to kind of like. Get to all of the original X-Crawl fans and the new people and such. So I must have been playing X-Crawl, but I don't, you know. Was that, I think that's, what's his name from 20 Sides from Every Story playing though, and I can't remember his name now. Just flew out of my head. Alex Kurowski, yeah.
Oh, is that him? Or else?
I think it was him on my immediate right.
Okay.
It's
been a couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, if we go to the next picture, Elena, this is Harley, also living large on a chair. I remember like walking by and he's like on the chair doing something to his players. It's like they all said it was a good game, but
we were running like the 6-way spell duel is what it was, and I don't know. I might have been a giant. I might be where like somebody might have been enlarged at that point or something.
Oh yeah.
Who knows? But that's what all those sheets are in the center. And like if you follow if you see like the crisscrossing lines, that's how we could tell who was dueling who across the table.
Oh, that's smart.
And
we got to do another spell duel tournament. That was fun. I forgot about that.
They are work. These are the days when it would just be like me doing like, all right, Joseph, I want to do an endless funnel, and you're like, sweet, you're the tournament. Or hey, Joseph, I want to do a spell duel. It's like, all right. But it was great. So I think that's that might be Sketch down to my left. But yeah,
I believe it's not Sketch. I'm blanking on his name. He's a nice guy. He comes to every Gen Con.
No, the little kid.
Oh, sorry, Connor, the other side.
Yeah,
you're right. That does look like.
Yeah.
And so then if we go to the next picture, Gen Con 2015, this is Harley with the WWF belt. I can't remember how that idea came about. But remember, for 2 or 3 years in a row, that was the tournament prize that we gave out. That was awesome.
Those belts are amazing. We got to do that again.
Yeah, because the winner of the tournament got a belt. I remember like wrapping it around the waist. It was an impressive prize. And then we have another photo, which is another booth breakdown photo. And we must have been posing in this one. I just thought everybody looked exhausted and tired.
What's happened to my arms?
You're macking is what's happening.
Is that it?
That's awesome. We all have all our luggage, so we've cleared out of the hotel. We're not staying Sunday night.
You're right.
Yeah. And we're packing up
on the road again.
That's so fun.
Yeah, and actually, what I'm noticing is the carpet. Because that carpet's expensive. Is that the year? Is that the year when I can finally afford to buy carpet at Gen Con?
We thought we were rolling at that point. We're like, oh,
Yeah, I know.
we are gods among men.
Well, because like they charge you for carpet, then you can pay even more for carpet with like the squishy foam stuff underneath. That's when you're like really living large. But yeah, I know. All right, so then, all right. Anyway, in 2016. Oh yeah, 2016. This is when Harley had somewhere you got this like Knights helmet as a prize for the tournament, and Mike decided to like stalk people with it. This is during booth.
That was the Warlords of the Purple Planet trophy.
That's
was
right.
the helmet. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm about to pounce.
Yeah,
What's going on there?
And then I think the next picture was another round of when I got into cardboard cutouts. This time I did them really big. And I guess Dieter's trying to take on Chuck.
Good luck, Chuck.
Exactly.
Oh.
And then we have another teardown photo. This was there's more of us now.
Yeah. Yeah. We got Wayne, we got Jogo.
Yeah, there's Eric Dom.
Terry's in there.
Terry.
Yeah, Terry.
Yeah. John. Keith. And I think I'm holding the proofs to, was
Yeah,
that the year I bought the
Diogo?
proofs to Metamorphosis Alpha? I think.
Yeah.
I think so. And Stefan, this might have been the first year where the artist had a spot in the booth. Or it might have been around here.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody in the photo looks familiar.
Yeah. There's even Doug, actually, now that I look. Alana, if you can flash it again.
He's
Doug's,
tiny.
I think he's literally hiding in the back. He probably tried to hide when the photo was taken. But yeah, he's right there in the back.
He looks like a little gnome.
Yes. And then the next, there he is. You can see him hiding in the back there between Mike and Jogo.
Oh yeah, God, look at that.
Squatting down to avoid being noticed.
I see the picture in Twin Peaks. It's like you know.
And then the next photo, most of you probably haven't seen this. This is my older son, Haven, who has been to 3 Gen Cons, but was like ages 2, 3, and 4 or something. So doesn't remember them at all. But he's always gotten along well with Doug. And I remember he went to Doug's booth, and I just remember Doug put on a mask and entertained them, and they had a great time.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, when Haven was either 2 or 3, when it was very early Gen Cons, Doug had the original art hanging up to Mike, to your module, the Sea Queen Escapes, and it was for sale. And I'm sure Jim Kitchen probably owns it now, or somebody out there. And Haven walked up. I don't think he'd ever seen original art before, but I remember he walked up and stuck his finger right on the painting. There was some part that he really liked, and he was like, "That's cool." Like that's like
awesome.
Much. It was all dry, but like there's like a mark on it. Like, ugh. But yeah, that was fun. All right, then we have a couple photos from 2018. And we have, first of all, oh yes, this was this wasn't Gen Con, it was Gary Con or something. But Mike, this is where you started signing Harley's name on autographs.
There was something happened. This was at Gary Con, and Harley wasn't there that year, I don't think. Yeah. And somebody. I think I don't remember how it started, but something came up. It was just like oh, I want to get Harley's autograph, and I was like, I can get that for you. So I'm like, and I signed his name on it and gave it to him. You know,
I thought we buried this beef, Curtis. You're back.
You didn't do it once, Mike. You did it like 5 times or something at the con. I remember you.
I'm there for the fans, man.
That's right.
You know, I don't want them to go away disappointed. You know.
Yeah, Mike Curtis has signed more sailors than I have.
I mean, how many people have gone to, back in the day, went to Doug's booth at Gen Con and thought they met Doug and just met whoever Doug had working the booth for that.
Whoever was babysitting the booth. Yep. Right, yep.
It's like a running joke. People would come to my booth and be like, trying to buy Doug's art. Can you help? It's like, not really. Like, I don't know where he is either. And then we have a photo from Origins, and this is actually, Brendan, it looks like it's you running X-Crawl again. And once again, macking for the camera. and I see some.
I'm a Macker. Oh yeah, there's Erica and
Andy.
Yep.
Yeah, Andy's there.
Yeah. And I can't tell everybody else, but oh, look at that. That was I do remember that year specifically because we got there and there was like a huge big space that was there that no one was in. So I moved that back table so that I wouldn't bother anybody by being too loud. That was good times, man.
What is Lucas Oil gonna do when we bust out the gong? I mean,
all
those
ceiling's
gamers
gonna
are
fall
gonna
in.
lose their minds. Like, no, seriously. Like, it's gonna be so obnoxious.
No, they told me like the sound apparently it'll actually be quieter because the ceilings are higher, so the sound doesn't like carry as much. Supposedly, I don't know. That's what
that gong's amazing. I think
I'm gonna hit it harder.
I think what we really got to do is have somebody revving the Wizard Van engine just every so often. Although, sorry, actually, I think the Gen Con policies, they make us disconnect the battery. I had to read I believe you have to disconnect the battery.
They won't allow nunchucks. We have to unplug the car. This place
so
sucks.
lame. What the hell? Right, Mike?
If we ever throw our own con, cars, as many cars as we want, weapons are legal.
They put us out. They put us out in Lucas Oil just because they didn't want us to do the procession of the gong again for.
Oh yeah.
Now that what's his name? He's so nice every time he comes to break up our crowd. The security guy.
Yeah, the security.
What was great was by like year 5, he was actually pre-scheduling his breakup. He would come to me like, "When you guys gonna have the crowd again?" Oh, okay, I'll be by around 3.
Woo.
Yeah. Oh man. All right. So we have one more photo. This is just a subset. We should do this again with like all the photos. But this is North Texas from 2018, and this is Doug running a game. Doug in the wild. And I think I brought this photo in just because like we don't always get that many. There's a lot of photos of Doug running DougCon. There's not that many photos out there that I've seen of Doug running a conventionally scheduled game. It looks like his players are having fun and Doug's giving them a good time.
Okay, so the retrospective is cool now, but like, what's next for you, Joseph Goodman? What you've brought us to this apex. What's the next great thing? What can all of our viewers look forward to?
That's a great question. I think the next great thing is that people right here in this call are continuing to do amazing stuff. I will tell you, I feel like I feel like I'm on this journey of exploration where we all started right with our fandom and interest in D&D as kids, and then at least in my case, I think many of our cases, we discovered where that came from with Appendix N and then those various inspirations. And then in my case, and I think many of you guys, we went past that and started reading, Algernon Blackwood. And, I have my shelf over here of stuff I'm reading, Arthur Machen, like these guys who inspired the inspirations. And I feel like now there's this space to go to, which is pre-Appendix N, as inspirations. And for lack of a better term, and I don't, the craziest part about all this is I don't know where it's going. None of us do, but it's been just like this exploration and fun journey.
And better is where it's going. That's where it's going.
Yeah. It feels like we just keep discovering new things, and the fact that we can pull off a 4-wheeled dungeon, which is like I never would have tried that before, But it's kind of like Castle White Rock. Like it just kind of managed to happen somehow, and now this is going to happen, and I just feel like there's just all sorts of even cooler stuff ahead, as we keep going towards trying exciting new projects and seeing if they work and then trying something even cooler once that works.
I think that's the beauty of what you've always done. You're always looking for that next thing, whether it be a new rule set or a new way to present things or an interesting thing to do with covers or printing or whatever it happens to be. I love that. I love that we're always, eyes to the next thing.
Yeah, try something new. Maybe we all just get bored easily. Who knows?
I think that's something that's kind of, has definitely been the kind of the theme for the next half of Goodman games, is because you got started before there was the old school Renaissance. You were around pre-old school Renaissance, and then DCC kind of came out at that same time of the old school Renaissance. But where the OSR was very much about like, let's recreate, like what everybody was doing in 1974. You and DCC was always about, let's take what we know now and take the inspiration and not look back, but take that and try to push it forward. And I think that's been the key to the success for DCC.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you look at some companies and they take the same adventure and update it for 4E and then for 5E, then do a version in this rule set, then release it, then it's a hardcover. And I don't like doing that. I don't like revisiting the past. And we've done that a couple times here and there. But I mean, we've published, I mean, there's DCC number 100, and not counting the 0.5s and all the rest. We must have published 200 adventures by now. And I feel like we've brought back 5 of them or something. Like I'd rather do something new and exciting than revisit the past.
Exactly.
I think we just need another 50 covers of Sailors. If we could just reprint that.
Maybe
I'll throw you one tonight. I'll do it. You know, so.
Yeah. That's right. I guess there is that one that we do keep republishing.
But see, I think that bringing a lot of different versions of the art is a Goodman Games thing. You know what I'm saying? I think that, like, you know, we're there for collectors as well as the gamers. You know what I mean? It's I think that's cool.
I just like the art. I think it's fun and cool. And like, for a lot of us, that is just as important to the game section or the inspiration. Totally. Plus, there's also this one kind of cover that I want to do, which nobody's agreed to do yet. You guys remember? Oh, I might even. Sorry, hold on one sec. Let me grab it.
Grab it.
So thanks for tuning in for Goodman Games. Oh, he's got it.
So like, have you guys seen these Mandalorian action figures that are just like the Kenner ones? Like the exact same articulation, the style, just like the Kenner. And so they did this series of comic book covers. If you're a comic book fan, where they were doing these like action figure themed covers, you know. So, and some of them look photoreal, like they actually looked like these. Others were drawn and, you know, didn't quite capture it. But that idea of doing like DCC action figures, not necessarily action figures, but like illustrated as if they were action figures on the cover to modules. Stefan, I can see your eyes lighting up. Like that, to me, the point is we need to publish at least 5 or 10 more adventures just to do the action figure series of alternate covers. And then from there, have you guys read the comic Space Riders?
Yeah.
It's really cool. I mailed Doug a copy a couple months ago because it's I don't know, for lack of a better word, crazy psychedelic, but just that's kind of style of art that is really cool and kind of hard to follow, but just crazy. So anyway, the other idea was we do a series of alternate covers based on that. Anyway, there's just a lot to explore that could, you know, bring alive, I think, a lot of the adventure ideas. And Stephanie, you got to check it out. I'll dig up a copy. I've got several issues of it around here. I think it's Space Riders. Okay, it's pretty good.
Space Riders. You got to make a Hue figure too, collectible Hue.
Exactly. Well, so Doug doesn't like the idea of the you know, commercialization. That idea doesn't resonate with him. But like, I think it'd be cool just to have our own. Like, remember the D&D action figures? Actually, while I'm here, you guys ever been to Super 7? Or anybody know Super 7?
It's 7.
So Super 7, it's super7.com. It's like one of my favorite companies right now. But they actually have a store here in the Bay Area. So they basically sell vintage action figures reimagined. Anyway, it's an inspirational story. You'll walk in there and of course then there's Garbage Pail Kids. We still have to do ourselves as Garbage Pail Kids because the G.I. Joe thing's getting old. So that's coming later this year. We're gonna need a Garbage Pail Kid name for you, Mike. And Brendan, Harley. Thank you, Stefan. Anyway, yes, what's next? Those are the things on my mind that I think could somehow result in something one of these days. And of course, whatever's on your minds, because I think it's a nice little synergy we get going when we all brainstorm together.
Joe, Joe, my Garbage Pail Kid name will be Stinky Puke.
That's what my 3-year-old says all the time.
but none of us will be able to pronounce stinky right. Like it'll be like off, just like
Stinky. Are you Stinky Puke?
No, it's Stonky Puke.
Well, that's good. We got one down.
Right.
Now, do you get to illustrate yourself, or do you want another artist? Do you want to nominate another artist to illustrate?
I think everybody should do everybody else.
Stink-A Poag. Okay, so since you're good at this, what should we call Harley, Brendan, and Mike?
Well, they need to come up with their own, I think.
Okay. All right, we'll work on that. I can see Brendan thinking. You can like see the little bubbles.
You know, my problem is everything I'm coming up with at this point is not safe for work. So
Right,
I'm
right,
not like, no, check that. No, can't say that.
Well, remember they always did like the A B cards, you know, so we can have like the A cards and the B cards.
Well, you guys remember how like Fiend Folio was like all UK monsters and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, now that DCC is international, we could do like we'll put this on Mike's plate, but he could coordinate like a Fiend Folio that's like all the Brazilian third-party publishers and all the UK folks and like
Only
all
somebody was
the
planning
French
stuff
and
like that. That was
Spanish, and like
amazing.
you can get all these crazy designers.
So
And
No,
the
we're
flavor will
working
be
on that,
completely
actually.
different than boring United States DCC, right?
No,
Wouldn't it be
it
amazing
hardly-
to see something like that?
we're working on something like that. It has a code name, but the idea is that certain international translators are gonna something that they're already creating in their native language. We will go back translate to English and then compile it all and release it. So for a French flavor, Spanish flavor, I didn't think
That's
about doing
awesome.
it for monsters. It's gonna be adventures, but that's a cool
Yeah.
idea to do it for monsters too. We can have monsters with like umlauts and like accent marks and like until these.
One of the monsters just is umlauts. That's it.
It's
the
German.
Oofenfrau, whatever that means. But yeah.
They escaped from a Motorhead album, and now they're running amok.
Oh, we got some good suggestions for Garbage Pail Kid names in the Hardly Stoned.
That's very good.
I like it. And Mike Kill Curtis.
Kill Curtis, yeah.
Ooh, great
Brisbane,
babe
Brendan.
for the win. Brendan Juan.
Yeah, I like it.
That's clever.
Somebody write this down. You gotta do
Yeah,
good.
right. Save the chat, quick.
And not for the normal reasons. That's it. Right?
Not for the evidence locker. Yeah.
Oh man. All right. Well, thanks everybody. This was fun. We gotta do this more often.
Yes.
Got another 10
Yeah.
years.
See y'all in 2032.
Mark your calendar. All right, cool. Thanks a lot. Any closing comments you guys have on to contribute, Stanke? Or
You know, it's just been an honor to be a part of Goodman Games and to be work with this crew that I love so much. And thank you for all the fun and for all the opportunities, Joseph Goodman, founder of the Feast.
Yeah, there we go.
thanks, and thanks to you guys too. Like it's always been a synergy, whatever the right word is.
It's cool. We're just getting started. You can really feel
That's
it.
getting started.
I mean, honestly, we need to plan ahead and have our own retirement home so we can sit around and like
Oh, nice.
Well,
a D&D themed retirement home. You know, how cool would that be?
Yeah.
isn't that why you took us to Alcatraz that time?
Oh, that was a cool trip. That was a cool trip.
Yeah, it was.
Oh man.
No, we got to do another one of this. I'm already making my list of cool things to do, and we'll
Yeah.
now that this whole plague thing is just about gone, we'll hopefully we'll do something. It'll be fun.
You're right. We'll ever have time for that again.
I know. As soon as my kids are 18, I'll have so much time.
Right.
All right, cool. Thanks everybody. It's been fun, and see you in another 20 years.
Yeah.
Thanks all.
See you later.
Thank
Bye,
you.
folks.
Bye.